Welcome, my friends. I am Dave Champion. This is my co-host, Bill Carns, and together we are totally unprepared. Well, this is going to be perhaps
somewhat prepared.
Somewhat prepared. We had to be because there's so much going on.
Yeah, we got to get through this.
Let's talk about what everybody's talking about, which we don't particularly want to talk about because it's so predictable.
It was absolutely predictable from the word go. And this is the Bundy incident that's going on now up in Oregon.
Yep.
Where Bundy was arrested. Now, by the time you're watching this show, this is new news to us. It's been happening less than 24 hours ago. There's more information out there by the time you see this. But Bundy was arrested in Lavoy,
Finicum?
Is that how it's pronounced?
I think that's how it's pronounced.
Lost his life.
Yeah.
Was killed by the cops. You had a Fed state trooper and I think some local guys there.
Yep. They planned to stop them on the highway when they went to a political meeting, and that's exactly what they did.
The way to do it, a lot better than raiding a building. We knew something like this was going to happen, that this is an inevitable end where they say, we're not leaving until we get what we want. And then the cops are under the orders, we're going to bring this to an end.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, when you go on land which is at least arguably belongs to the feds, or the feds consider that they own it or have regulatory control over it, however you want to characterize that. Right. And you say, it's ours now. There's only one outcome for that. And this is it.
And that's
now.
The feds are going to win.
Yeah, of course.
At least this hand
this
of
round,
cards.
yes.
Yeah, this round.
And the funny thing is that Bundy told his wife in a phone call after he was in custody that Finicum had been shot with his hands up, not resisting. And of course, law enforcement's telling a different story that he was, but they're being vague and they're saying he resisted arrest. That's all they're saying.
Resisted could mean I don't want to get out of the car.
Right.
That's resisting. All the way up to gun in your face, finger on the trigger. I'm going to kill you if you try to take me into custody. Everything in between is resisting. So what kind of resisting?
What's the most common resistance you and I encounter when we were on the job? Get off of me, man.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to cooperate.
Yeah, so you're going to shoot somebody?
Leave me alone.
So here's my thing. This is a controversial case, yes? Nationwide?
Absolutely.
Okay. Did they know they were going to make this T-stop in the highway well in advance of making the stop? Okay. Where's the video?
And you would think not only would they have video of the whole thing, they'd have their very best guys from,
bless you,
pardon me, from federal, state, and local, the very best guys, and we're talking mentally guys, that are prepared to handle this. They've rehearsed this, they've practiced it, and it's all on video. And I mean, as by the book, as professional as you can possibly be, is where it should be.
Because you pointed out in, I think, the show 2 weeks ago, our last show, you pointed out body cams or video generally is, if the cops are doing the right thing, it's the cop's best friend.
Absolutely.
So where is you're going to make a controversial stop. Where is the video? Mm-hmm. That's my beef with this whole thing. I want to see the video. You killed somebody. Where's the video?
Yeah.
And you knew you were going into a conflict. Where's the video?
Let's talk about the Cleveland pursuit.
This happened, 2012, I think? The actual
about
pursuit?
3 years ago, 2.5 years ago.
105 officers involved in a pursuit at 100-plus miles an hour. I think...
Which most jurisdictions would never fly. You're going to allow that many cops involved.
No. And 63 of the 105 have, to some one extent or another, been suspended for a day, 2 days, 10 days.
Right.
Okay. 63 out of 105.
For a high-speed pursuit, you let him go. Let the helicopter find him.
Right. That's the crazy thing. Everybody just wanted to let their testosterone flow.
Yeah. It had been a while since we had some adrenaline.
Little adrenaline rush. Yeah. And of course, what happened was, in the end, something like 18 officers opened fire on the car, firing 137 rounds. Okay. Then, an officer by the name of Brello, he runs, after all the other officers are done with their fusillade, he runs forward, leaps up on the hood of the car, standing on the hood, takes his gun, boom, 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 and starts capping right through the windshield.
Nearly 50 rounds, 40 some odd rounds.
Yes. Now.
So that's mag change, do it again, mag change, do it again.
Now, the jury acquitted him. And here's why. Because I read his statement, up on the witness stand. I was so scared. I've never been so scared in my life. I thought they were going to kill all of my fellow police officers. 105 cops. They just hose 137 rounds into the car. I'm so terrified of them. The only thing that's more insane than him making that claim
is the jury bought
is
it.
12 fucking morons who believed him. Unbelievable. Yeah, get your pen out. That's right. I said it. It's unbelievable.
You know who this guy reminds me of is the coward FBI agent during the Platt and Maddox shootout that was hiding and cowering and didn't come out until the shooting was over and then runs up like he's a hero at the end. Yeah. This guy, this thing was over before he jumped up on there and did that.
Yeah.
What a jackass.
Yeah, 137 rounds into the car?
What about the guy at the UC Ohio who ended up getting shot in the head during some BS traffic stop by a university cop?
Yeah.
Settlement there.
Plain vanilla traffic stop.
It's about a year or so ago.
And, you know, white young cop, which always seems to be the knuckleheads, the white young cops.
Yeah, all of this on video, by the way. He had a body cam, which is what toasted him.
And the guy that got shot, he was kind of what I used to call when I was on the street a homie bromie. You know, he's certainly not the kind of people you or I would invite to dinner. But they get in this little verbal tussle, right? And the cop says, get out of the car. And the guy pulls the door closed, and he says, man, what, man? I didn't do nothing.
Yeah, goes to lock the door and drive away.
And so he puts the car in drive and starts driving away. He put the car, as he's putting it in drive, the cops say, stop, 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 boom, 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 boom.
And even says, put down the gun or something like that. You remember that? He said something.
That
yeah,
part.
He said something like put down the gun, and he shoots the guy in the head.
Yeah, which, by the way, this whole thing, stop going for my gun, put down the gun. This is all mantras now the cops rehearse saying as they pull their gun, so they have justification, even if the person isn't armed.
There was no gun there.
No gun there.
No gun there.
So he shoots and kills the guy, shoots him in the head. Okay, one shot to the head kills him. The university is paying out just shy of $5 million, and the guy has 11 kids, and the university, part of the settlement is...
That's a busy guy.
The university has to pay for all 11 of them through postgraduate studies, every single one of them, no matter how long it takes.
That's worth almost another $5 million there by the time they're all going
But
through.
more importantly, the cop executed this guy when there was no threat to the officer's safety.
Yeah, and so he was fired, but he still isn't prosecuted.
No.
Who cares if he's fired? No. He murdered somebody.
I know. It's every day now. Every day now, something like this is happening. Remember speaking of firing, Arizona State University cop. This story goes, back a year ago?
Yeah. He slammed that female professor.
Yep, black female professor.
White cop.
Yep.
Not that I know that this makes any difference.
In this story, I don't think it's relevant. It was relevant, I think, in the earlier story, not in this one. She jaywalks.
Across university property.
Right.
Across one of their own university streets.
So
he stops her. Oh, you.
Let me see your driver's license.
The difference between law enforcement and policing.
Yeah.
Is it a technical violation of law? Yes. Is it harming anybody? No. This is the real problem with the whole term of law enforcement, because crap like this happens.
Yeah. So he asks for ID. She starts mouthing off. So he ends up taking this 40-year-old something woman to the ground with his partner, slamming her down on the hot asphalt. You know, it's like, it's jaywalking, you moron. If you cite 12 people for jaywalking that day, and one of them, you get into a verbal confrontation and you say, ma'am, you're going to get one freebie. Next time, it's going to go differently.
He probably could have easily found out what department she worked for and gone to the department head about it or something.
Right, and gotten her idea that way.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, come on.
But instead, takes this 40-year-old professor to the ground. He ends up being fired.
Yeah.
There's a video of him speaking to a reporter. He fully doesn't get it.
He initially was not fired. He was initially exonerated.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
Correct. The agency exonerated him, which technically is correct. Okay. She did violate a statute. He has reasonable suspicion. He requested identification. She did not comply. Technically, it meets the letter of the law. Okay.
Sure.
He was just fired the other day.
But it doesn't meet the intent of the law.
It does not. And it does not, any rational person is not going to act.
And a lot of cops hide behind the letter of the law, not realizing that the intent of the law actually holds a lot more water to it.
At least it should.
Yeah.
And there's a video of him talking to a reporter, this cop that was terminated, and he says, it's all political. And I'm thinking to myself as I'm watching, first of all, he doesn't get it at all, because even during his presentation to the reporter, he says, it's my job as a police officer to hold people accountable for the crimes they commit. Jaywalking.
Yeah, again, law enforcement, not peace officer.
Right, to hold people accountable for the crimes they commit, walking across the street when there's no cars coming just because there's no crosswalk there. The crimes they commit. Talk about somebody who doesn't get it.
She was a criminal.
Right. And then he says, this is all political. And I'm like, yeah, it is. Because the community is starting to speak up. As more and more of these things are being caught on video, they're saying no more. And I'm sure what happened was eventually the political pressure became so great that the regents of the university told the chief, who serves at their pleasure, if you would like to continue serving, you're going to get rid of this guy. Because the community doesn't want this kind of policing. Go figure.
What do you want to bet this officer gets hired by some other agency somewhere
in a
like that? They'll probably bring him here at NCSO. It's a second chance department. You never know.
One of the officers,
have an opportunity.
This story probably goes back 2 or 3 years ago, and I don't remember the exact details, but there was an officer who killed somebody wrongfully. And when the press got into his history, that was like his 6th agency in like 2.5 years.
Oh, yeah, I remember this.
He had gotten out of the academy, gone to work, gotten bumped from one agency almost immediately, went to another one for 3 months, got bumped, went to another one for 6 months, got bumped, because he was such a schmuck. And he kept bouncing from agencies kept picking him up. Why? Because he'd already been through the academy. They didn't eat the cost.
They have to pay for that.
And so eventually he wrongfully shot somebody. And then I think it was also a university. Oh, it was the one where the kid said to him during a traffic stop, again, a university traffic stop, the kid said to him, "What are you going to do, shoot me?"
And he did.
And he shot him. Yeah, an unarmed kid who was high on pot. I hate that word high because, there's a lot of different highs, right? LSD is different than pot, right? The guy had a buzz, how's that, on pot, and said to the cop, "What are you going to do, shoot me, man?" And the cop pulled out his gun and shot him.
Yeah.
And killed him.
So these second chance departments can be real problems. We've certainly seen that on the local level in a number of areas.
Yes, I'm not sure how many of the citizens of Pahrump are aware that the Nye County Sheriff's Department is a second chance agency.
Yeah, and
so
some of the people that have cost us a lot of money in lawsuits are second chance hires.
And costing us more money. You'll hear about that soon.
We'll be right back.
We are back, and it's time for... What is up with religious organizations going to insane, extreme positions? Let me explain what I'm talking about. Obamacare. Now, I'm no fan of Obamacare, but there's a religious exemption for things such as contraceptives. In other words, when a company provides insurance through the framework of Obamacare, and they feel the company takes a religious exemption or wishes to take a religious exemption, they get to explain to the government why they shouldn't have to provide contraceptives. Now, personally, since 99.9999% of these organizations are legal fictions or things like corporations, which are not real people, they don't have real... A corporation can't have a religious point of view. So why they're making this argument is sort of lost on me. But that's not the court argument. That's just my personal comment. So the first one that went down, you remember, was Hobby Lobby. And that went all the way to the United States Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, yes, you have to grant these companies that are religious in nature, the owners have a very strong religious position, an exemption. And basically the framework of that was, and we don't want to be revisiting this the Supreme Court saying, we don't want to be revisiting this every single time, so come up with a mechanism that it's handled long before it gets to the courts. So the government came up with a method to do that. They have a document now. If a religious organization feels that they are deserving of an exemption from the Obamacare provision, most notably dealing with providing contraceptives as part of the insurance coverage to their workers, they can fill out a form in which they state why they believe they are entitled to the exemption under the law. They give it to the government, and you can imagine, since the Hobby Lobby, there was another organization as well, they were just wrapped into the name Hobby Lobby, since they won completely in that case, and the government lost completely in that case, you can imagine the government's going to be pretty easygoing about these exemptions. If you have half a decent rationale for your exemption, the government's going to grant it. Because the Supreme Court made it clear, we don't want to be revisiting this again and again and again. So now comes along this organization called Little Sisters of the Poor. And the Little Sisters of the Poor is a Catholic organization, and they claim an exemption from the contraceptive portion, just as Hobby Lobby did. Except they claim that it is against their religion to fill out the exemption form. Now, not only is that insane enough, but the Thomas More Law Center, which is I guess we would call it like a very hard right Christian religious legal group that brings lawsuits on the behalf of Christianity and Christians throughout the country. And they're one of the more notable such organizations. And so in their documents that they filed now, their friend of the court brief, I believe, with the United States Supreme Court, they are alleging that the Supreme Court cannot, should not, must not decide, must steer clear of reaching a decision on the entire matter of the case, whether it is treading upon the Little Sisters of the Poor's religious freedom to fill out a government form explaining to the government why they want the exemption from that portion of the law. The basis upon which the Thomas More Law Center is saying that the court should stay away, not rule on the primary issue, is that the Supreme Court then, the 9 judges and their lawyers in black dresses that sit on the Supreme Court, would be deciding what the court should never decide. That is, what constitutes sin. Now, if you've been watching this show for any length of time, you know that I am a non-religious person. And my personal paradigm is I consider the very notion of sin to be absurd. I do very much believe in right and wrong, but that's the practical aspects of right and wrong, and that deals with my moral framework as I see right and wrong. And Bill's moral framework might be similar to mine, but not identical, and yours might be similar to mine, or yours might not be anywhere near mine. That's how we judge right and wrong. But when we get into things like religion, we get into things like sin. I remember many, many decades ago, definition of sin that I heard was by Bible-believing fervent Christians was whenever you act outside the will of God, you're sinning. So who determines what the will of God is? Because I'm going to guess if you polled a bunch of Christians without telling them what the Thomas More Law Center has, the position they're taking, if you said, is it a sin to fill out this form, probably this many Christians would say yes, and this many Christians would say no, it's not a sin. But the Little Sisters of the Poor claiming that it would require them to sin to fill out the form. Okay? So sin is this flexible standard unhitched from anything other than a person's personal opinion. And if you line up 100 people, there can be 100 different opinions on what is and is not sin, which is exactly why it can never be an excuse for disobeying the law. Because the law has to be set out in a way that every single citizen can know where the boundary markers are. You are not permitted to do this. You must do that. To know where those boundary markers are is the only thing that makes the law viable. And it's not even always viable with the markers, but that is one of the fundamentals. Before you even get into higher arguments, fundamentals is the law has to be crystal clear on what is and is not permissible. Once you start bringing the notion of sin into the law, now you're all over the map because, as I said, you ask 100 people, you can get 100 different answers. So now what you can do and can't do and should do and shouldn't do is a matter of personal opinion because you've integrated some guy's idea of what is sin into the black letter of the law. I cannot possibly imagine what the Little Sisters of the Poor hope to accomplish by taking this position. I can't possibly think that the Thomas More Law Center is doing anything other than grandstanding, because the attorneys that work there are trained attorneys and they understand everything I just shared with you. So to claim that the highest court in the land cannot rule, should not rule, must not rule on a federal regulatory matter because then they are deciding what is sin and what is not is absurd. And it just goes with what I'm seeing today in America as rampant absurdity in this country, most especially with religion, but on any myriad of topics. Bill?
I'm wondering if the judges are going to consider the argument from this law center or not, or if they will act as, well, disciples in their robes.
There you go.
You never know.
Yeah.
They're 3 shy. There's only 9 of them.
That's right. That, you know my views on religion. We've talked about this extensively. And
but you know something that's interesting?
What's that?
You don't really know my views on religion.
I don't. And I've sort of steered clear on that. And
the reason is I have my own idea of things and my own idea of operating, which works. I think it works really well. And the thing is, I don't think I need to explain it to you or anybody else. It's my way. And I also don't believe it is my position to take however I believe and spread it to the masses. That's my business. Yeah. It's between me and how I feel about religion, whether I believe there's a God or not, whether I have a relationship there or not, and how that relationship should go. It's my opinion.
Yeah. But I'm glad you brought that up, because that highlights my frame of reference in that we've known each other for more than a decade. And because you do not proselytize, and because I never, ever hear you when we discuss matters of law, I never, ever hear you bring something out of a religious writing and want it to appear in the law, because those two things don't happen from you, I've never felt any need to intrude on that most personal aspect of your life, which is your religious views.
You know, it's interesting. My girlfriend and I were actually having a discussion, funny enough, on diet. There's a diet out there called Eat Right for Your Blood Type.
Yes, well familiar with it.
We just recently typed her, and turns out we have the same blood type. Oh. So in the little $6 kit, it's more of a process of elimination than really a clear answer. But we believe that we are the same blood type. So she spent some time this morning and looked it all up, and we were talking about it. I hate to say it, it is the 27th of the month. We finally put away the Christmas tree today. It sits in a separate room that we do not use or occupy, and quite honestly rarely see. And last night I said, it's either coming down or we're taking it outside and leaving it in the front yard. But anyhow, she was telling me, she said, we shouldn't be eating breads and refined pastas and a couple of things. She goes, and I think that's probably because it doesn't come from nature. And I think that, as God would see it, if he didn't provide it to us, so we shouldn't have it. I said, no, wait a minute. Wait a minute. In your area, you believe God gave us the ability to think and decide and do things and make things better, but not to mess with everything else is cool. Just don't mess with the food. Don't make bread. Don't be able to take dairy and preserve it into something like cheese. What are you talking about?
So did you tell her from now on she'll be riding a horse bareback?
No, you know what I told her was
no more cars, no more internal combustion engines, because God didn't create internal combustion engines.
I think what she does is she jumps to in this case, she jumped to the answer that she wanted and then tried to work a path back to justifying it. I think is what happened.
I wish I had a video of that conversation.
But no, it was. I mean, we joked about it. We joked about it a little bit, and I'm like, you can't be serious about this, because God didn't create bread. Do you realize that God didn't create wine, but Jesus did? Water into wine? I mean, and they were breaking.
Well, there you go.
They were breaking bread. Well, she was actually talking about cheese, not bread. She said, cheese isn't natural. I'm like, it's all natural. Have you ever bought organic cheese, for goodness sake?
Yeah, that is really funny.
You
got me way off base with that one.
When it comes to this argument of the Little Sisters of the Poor, I want to know if they've ever filled out any sort of a government form, or if there's certain government forms that would be sinful to fill out.
Well, they have to. They're a nonprofit.
Exactly my point. They've already filled out government forms. Is it because of the topic?
They've incorporated? And then they requested a 501c3 status from the IRS.
Is it against the law for them to ask the bookkeeper to fill out the form on their behalf instead?
And probably in all those previous occasions, their attorneys filled out the forms. So why not just have the attorney fill out the form this time?
Yeah, it's against it's sinful to pay the attorney out of the retainer to do that.
Religious extremists. And we'll be back right after this.
Something's about to grind my gears. What is it? You know what really grinds my gears? Small-minded people who just want to complain their way through without actually providing any sort of solution whatsoever. Basically just adding to the problem. Now, it's no secret that I have actually chaired a few organizations here and there. I've run a couple of businesses here and there. And I learned at a young age from my father, don't come to me with a problem, come to me with a solution. Anybody, any Tom, Dick, or Harry can come around and tell you about a problem that's going on. Okay, what's the solution? You know, empowering somebody to come to you with a solution helps to get people to think critically and be able to spitball some ideas with. I have taken that mantra that my father taught me, my old pappy taught me, just how to take care of this, and that has come to me with a solution. And I have to tell you, I get pretty fed up when people come to me just to complain and complain and complain. Basically, somebody who's nothing more than a squeaky wheel. And when that squeaky wheel needs to get a little grease of education, they don't want to hear about it. All they want to do is squeak and sputter and backfire and just make noise without actually providing any kind of solution. So I want to provide just a wee bit of guidance to those of you out there. If you're in a situation where you're involved in an organization or at work or even in family, and there's a problem, and you need to take that to someone at a different level, higher up if you will, or just off to another side to get addressed, I implore you to come up with some sort of a perceived solution that you can offer to solve the problem. Something that works better for everybody. If it's best for the organization as a whole, or the workplace, whatever it is, or if it's best for the company, whatever that might be. But think about those things before you just start blabbing away about what the problem is. And I'm doing that to you right now. The problem is that people just blab on about problems. What they don't do is provide a solution. So my solution to airing this out is to think about the solutions. If you come to me with an issue, hey, you know, we noticed that this, that, and the other haven't gotten done. What do you think about the idea of this, that, and the other to solve these issues? Well, now, hey, that's something I can work with. That's something everybody should be able to work with. And on the rare occasion somebody says, you know what, you just bring me the problem, I'll handle the solution. You know what, treat that person the way that they are. They're probably not going to be in that position for very long if they're that closed-minded to think that only they can come up with the solution. So, stop all of this just going on and running your jib and complaining about stuff. By the way, I pointed out to somebody probably about 15 years ago what the quality of somebody's life, how the quality of someone's life can be measured based on their complaining, if you listen to the complaining over a period of time. I truly believe that individuals need to have a certain amount of what I call gripe time. You need to gripe about something. Now, some people gripe 95% of their existing time on Earth. Other people gripe as little as about 2%. Everybody's different, but people need to unload. They need to be able to vent. And some people vent far more than others. If you listen to what they're venting about, you can generally get an idea of their quality of life and whether or not you need to pay attention to their venting or just kind of blow it off. If someone's venting about, gee, I'm not sure where I'm going to get the money to be able to buy groceries for my kids, the electrical just got turned off, the water is cold, I can't seem to get them to the bus stop on time, they got holes in their shoes. These are problems. These are problems you might want to listen in. There might be a way to help solve some of these problems with some of these folks. If you got someone else that's griping about, you know what, just 6 months ago I put a $1,500 set of Pirellis on my Mercedes-Benz AMG, and already they're going to, I got to put another $1,500 set on there. On top of that, I got my 4th ticket for going over 100 miles an hour, and now I got to go to this silly driver's ed class, and my insurance rates are going a little bit higher. And man, my commission check was off by 3%. I only got $27,000 for last week's commissions instead of $28,400. You know, these are the sorts of things that you can kind of blow off. This is just someone venting, not solving. You don't need to worry about those guys. Dave, you got anything that grinds your gears about people that just sit there and just bitch?
You know, the thing that you said when you said you learned from your father, don't come to me with a problem, come to me with a solution.
Yes.
I would like to modify that from my own personal perspective. I believe that it's important to come to somebody with the problem because you have to define the problem in order to define the solution, right? But that's a semantics argument.
As that's interpreted, right.
Yes. And that is exactly my ethos. It is rare, incredibly rare, I mean, I can't even think of an example in the last 20 years of my life, that I have ever brought a problem to somebody that I have not suggested a solution. The sole exception being if it's somebody else's enterprise and I'm a customer who's saying, look, there seems to be a problem with your staff and how they're conducting themselves. It's not my place to tell that owner how to effect a solution. It's my job to let them know that the customers are not happy. But short of something like that, where it's really not my purview, if I am in any way involved in the company, we used to work for that same large firearms school. And although I was not a member of management there, when there were problems, I went to management. I said, here is a problem that I perceive exists. Allow me to define it for you. And I believe that the following would be, I'm going to lay out 3 options that any of them would be good, better, best solutions to fix the problem. Of course, because of how their management is there, that actually caused me to be in disfavor there. Because you know how their management works, they don't want to hear it.
And when I was at that same business, the management had a different structure.
Yes, different people.
I was able to do the same sort of thing, but generally get much better results than what you ran into.
Right, and you shared with me the fact that when you shared with the one particular individual who you had to go to back in that day, that more often than not, he was receptive.
Right.
Okay. You know, fast forward a couple years by the time I was there, he's no longer in the loop. Other people are in management, and their ethos had turned around to, if we didn't think of it, we don't want to hear it.
Right.
But nevertheless, my point being, even though I wasn't a decision maker, I was an integral part, and I cared for the interest of the customers, or the members.
Empathy.
Yes, I cared for their experience and the quality that they were receiving. And that care and concern caused me to go and define the problem and define the solution. The gentleman that we talked about before we went on air and you did this rant, he exemplified exactly the opposite. He didn't offer to participate in betterment. He didn't make suggestions on how things could be bettered. He didn't offer time, energy, ideas, anything. He just wanted to let you know that you weren't handling things correctly.
That's right.
Yeah. And especially, that's not even a business. That's an informal, you call that an association. Okay. You run an association of people. It's not a for-profit business. So there's no boundary there where he can't step over and say, hey, I thought this would be a great idea. It's an association of like-minded people. If you think something's a great idea, say, hey, here's a problem. I think this would be a great solution.
Yeah, and this went differently. This was just, I'm going to complain about all these different things, and several people are coming to me, but no names were mentioned. I love that. I love that when people say, I've had a half dozen people call me and complain about this, that, and the other, so I'm bringing it to you. Okay, and my response is, all right, well, who are these people? So I'm not going to name names. Okay, well, I need you to give me, how about initials? Give me initials. Anything other than BS.
Yeah.
because that's what I'm here. Don't start this off by telling me a whole bunch of people come to me and look to me for guidance because they don't have what it takes to call you and bring it to you, and I'm that person. You know what? F you.
Yeah.
Just shut up.
I've encountered that too, where people say, you know, I'm speaking on behalf of a number of other people. I say, who are they? They say, I can't divulge that. I say, great. Then as far as this conversation is concerned, you're calling on behalf of you.
Yeah.
Okay. If you can't divulge who these other people are, they don't exist.
Yeah. If you're heading up a group of folks, give me their initials. You know, give me what town do they live in? Just give me something so I know that you're not absolutely pulling my chain. And the thing is, every single time I've challenged somebody on that in this particular organization, they have all been pulling my chain. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah, and
even one of the guys that in this town is considered one of the town fathers, right? He calls me up a couple years ago and starts digging into me on something, and I called him back and I responded with, who are you to demand anything out of me? I've never seen you at a meeting. You've never participated. And now you're calling and demanding that I provide you information on something? Go pound sand.
I remember that.
Yeah, go pound sand. You know, I'm a town founder, whatever you think you are. Yeah, I don't care. You provide nothing to me or the organization to which I represent.
Right.
I work for them.
You want to pay our rent this month?
Yeah, exactly. They put me in a position to work for them and do what we're supposed to be doing as an organization. The title didn't make me king. The title made me the ultimate servant. And that's the way I look at it. And based on that, you're not going to come in and play king. They're kings. I'm their servant, and I'm here to tell you, I haven't ever heard anything out of your mouth, and now you're calling to challenge me and demand things. Go pound sand.
Yeah. And, you know, it's funny that you should talk about one of the town founders, or what they consider themselves to be the founders, because, you know, as I go about town, I talk to people about the economic conditions in this town, which are woeful. And one of the things that has become quite apparent is the main, depending on how you look at it, the 4 or 5 big families in this town that exercise quite a bit of influence over the events in this town. Not absolute, but quite a bit. That in many cases, they're the ones that are working diligently to prevent growth in this town.
Yeah.
While people are on welfare, they're on EBT cards, they're on Medicaid, there's no economy here, there's no jobs here, and yet those families who are doing very well based on the skeletal structure today.
They want to protect what they've got.
Right. So no growth, everybody suffers so they can continue to do well. It's reprehensible.
It's the idea that they say the rich get richer, the poor get poor. And this person I'm talking about, you know who it is, but it's somebody that would fit into those 4 or 5 families. That's a patriarch of one of these families. It's just, you know what, whatever, man. If you want to call me up and have a conversation, sit down, have lunch, talk about things, I'm all for it. Let's do it. Yeah. I'm absolutely open to that. Don't call me up out of the blue demanding that I do. Who are you? And you know, you don't participate. Go sit back in the cheap seats.
One of the things that you said, which is so true about you, and I think it's true about any real leader, you have ideas, tell me.
Yeah.
Because I don't have them all.
That's right. Absolutely
and
not.
That's who you are.
Surround yourself with good people. We'll be right back. You get the opening, I get segment 4.
Okay.
That's the way it works. Welcome back. Segment 4. This is where we talk about your emails when you send them to us at daveandbillshow@gmail.com. Dave, you email that all the time with ideas for us to keep up on.
I do, yes.
So we are somewhat prepared on occasion.
Yes, yes.
Not very much for the opening of this segment. Next, what you can do is when you want to watch some of the older shows is go to totallyunprepared.info. By the way, I just got an email from GoDaddy that says we owe another $12.95 towards that.
Oh my gosh.
$12.95 a year. We can put up
send it to this address.
Yeah.
By the way, I send emails to that address.
Yeah.
Because y'all are so fickle. Sometimes we have a bunch of messages from you. Sometimes we have none.
Yeah, so it's strange. Just send us an email and say, hi, I love the show. Or let us know, do you watch it on the air, or do you go on YouTube and watch it, or do you go to totallyunprepared.info and watch it? Let us know, because if nobody goes to totallyunprepared.info, then we can say $12.95. I'm just saying. But yeah, just send us an email, say hi, and let us know, what sort of topics it is that we talk about that you like most, and which things you don't really care. Like, do my rants suck and you don't like hearing about my rants, or what is it? Just let us know. We always like to hear those things.
And by the way, you, the guy who keeps spamming us, knock it off.
Yeah, please, come on. Okay, so let's talk about something about this Colorado home invasion, right?
Ah, yes.
This is a scenario where you have a homeowner who's inside of his house, and
lay it out, Bill. Lay it out.
yeah, a home invader comes in there, ties the guy up, burglarizes the house. Armed home invader ties the guy, burglarizes the house. Then goes to unass out of the house, gets in the guy's car, and he's going to steal the guy's car. He's able to get out of the tie-up restraints. Obviously, this guy was not into bondage or something, or he would have been there for days. You never know. But he's able to get.
Wasn't a Boy Scout. Didn't know his nonsense.
Evidently, didn't know his lashings. Goes to drive out of the driveway, and the homeowner comes out with his gun and starts shooting at him in the car. Gets a couple hits on him. The bad guy goes down the block and ends up crashing the car and ends up dead. So
now let's clarify though for the audience, the bad guy is getting away in the homeowner's car.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, getting away in the homeowner's car. So he ends up shooting him through the car. Now the guy's got a shot up car. It's crashed, but bad guy is in there and he's dead. So he gets all of his stuff back. Now what they're talking about is the idea that the homeowner may possibly face some sort of criminal charges in this, because their version of the castle doctrine doesn't extend beyond the outside of the walls of the home, doesn't extend into the front yard or the driveway or the car. And was the homeowner somehow no longer in threat of imminent death or serious bodily injury from this home invader because he's now making his escape?
Yeah, but of course no other homeowner would be in danger.
Right.
An armed, violent home invader, you're going to let him get away?
So what I do in this case is I always flip the script.
Oh, hang on one second. Before you go there,
Okay.
because I know where you're going. Before you go there, so far in my past, historically, the Supreme Court case that says you can shoot a fleeing suspect.
You're talking about Tennessee versus Garner.
Tennessee v. Garner, thank you.
Yes.
Tennessee v. Garner, police officer, if a suspect is fleeing, whether they're a threat to that officer or not, if the officer's state of mind at the time, he truly believes that letting that person go, the person stands a reasonable chance of being violent to someone else, he can shoot him, yes? In the back.
Yes. If it's a someone that has showed tendencies towards violent, felonious acts. Yes.
Okay, so now you were going to. I wanted to clarify. Tennessee Garner would allow a police officer to do that.
Right. So that's where I was going with this. Is I put this into the scenario. If this was a cop that owned this house and this happened to, we wouldn't even be hearing about this.
Right.
The idea of he might face charges, wouldn't even be hearing about it. But because it's a private citizen that did this, now we're hearing about it. So tit for tat, really the only authority that police have that we don't is the ability to serve search warrants.
Yeah.
That's essentially it.
Right. Absolutely. I observed earlier that the real difference between cops and citizens, when I say citizens, I mean guys like you and me that have the temperament to act, okay, is that the difference between us and a guy in a uniform with a badge, immunity and radios. That's it.
Yeah.
And the immunity thing sort of plays into this, not directly, but the immunity is a parallel to this, that the citizen opened fire on a clearly violent felon. Okay? How many felonies we can't even count. Okay? Who's almost certainly, when he leaves, going to do it somewhere else.
And could definitely cause death or serious bodily injury to the next person, especially if they resisted.
If they fought back, right.
This guy kept his mind straight, and he knew where a gun was in short order. He was able to get out of the restraints, grab the gun, and get out before the guy was able to get out of the driveway and down the street.
Yeah. Now, this is going to sound unusual to people because most people don't think outside the box. Okay? My point of view on things like this has always been the same. I do not want agents of the state, government enforcement officers, serving as judge, jury, and executioner.
Judge Dredd, if you will.
Yes. I am much more okay with citizens doing that because that is now the sovereign people. Okay, I'm not talking about the whole sovereign movement. The Supreme Court has called the citizens of the United States the sovereigns that hold the political power of this country. Okay? So if a constituent part of this sovereignty says, I witnessed with my own eyes. I was assaulted. I was tied up. My house was ransacked. My keys were stolen. My car was stolen. Okay? I witnessed these multiple felonies take place at risk, if I didn't comply, with risk of my death.
Yeah, at the barrel of a gun.
Right. I'm going to stop this right now. Okay? I have no problem with a citizen.
Just one shot, Dave?
Well, that's all we take now.
I carry a 45.
That's right. I shoot a man's caliber. So, but my point being, I don't have a problem with the citizenry who was the object or who observed, perhaps. Let's say the neighbor was observing the whole thing from next door.
And the neighbor handled it.
And I don't care if the neighbor lays in wait and the felon comes out the door and he caps him. Okay? That's what it takes to clean up crime.
And that is what police would do. That is not outside of the scope of something that police would do and what we would expect police to do.
Right. Well, I don't want them executing guys that are not a threat to them.
No, I get that. But I'm just saying the way that this went down.
Yeah. You're right. If the cop ordered him to stop, and still, I don't know if I want an agent of the government shooting him as he drove away.
No, I get that. I'm just saying it's not out of what we would expect in today's day and age, because this sort of things happen.
Yes. And there would almost certainly be no corrective action from police management or executives.
Yeah. We don't want you taking the law into your own hands. You know something? What police go through that citizens don't is called a police academy.
Right.
And they learn about things. Now, it's not more than 25, 30 years ago. There's a lot of law enforcement agencies, for lack of a better term, I hate law enforcement as a term, that never had an academy.
Yep.
The last sheriff in Las Vegas, he had Doug Gillespie. He waited several months to actually get into an academy of sorts. The people that were predecessors to him, oftentimes they didn't have an academy. It was on-the-job training. Get in the car, let's go.
When you talk about the difference, we talked in the first segment about that Cleveland officer, Brello. The jury let him off, acquitted him. When I read that, based on his actions, okay, and then they acquitted him, it's the jury's failure to be able to connect with the job. Because if the jurors could actually have some sense of what the job required, they would understand that when the gunshots, the echo of the gunshots fades and you rush up and jump on the hood and hose somebody down, you're not in fear.
No, not even close.
Yeah. It's the inability of the citizenry to place themselves in that
and that was the attorneys on the other side of the case, the prosecutors, I'd imagine at this point, didn't do their job in pointing that out. Let's talk a little bit about the ridiculousness coming out of Flint, Michigan water system, what the county is now saying.
Yeah. We don't need to tell you what's going on in Flint, right?
Yeah.
The lead, all the children being poisoned by the lead, for the want of one guy making the decision to spend $100 a day to put a chemical in the water that would have prevented that from happening.
Yeah.
So now, some of the citizens, I presume most of these are the low econ citizens, they're like, we're not paying for the water. The water is poison. We're not paying for poison.
Yeah.
My child is retarded, mentally retarded now, because you wanted to save $100 a day.
Well, now that child could grow up and be a member of the Flint government.
There you go. And they're saying...
By the way, all Democrats.
Yes.
I don't know if this makes a difference. Somebody decided that this was somehow the Republicans' fault, but everybody who sits on the city council and the mayor are all Democrats. I don't know how it was the Republicans' fault. I hate it when people throw in the political parties into something where it doesn't count. Yeah. It was stupidity all around.
Yes.
It was short-sightedness.
Well, I think it is meaningful that it was the people on the left who did this, because the people on the left like to posture like they care about people like nobody else, like people on the right don't.
Yeah.
And yet we see what happens in the left.
Now the people that are saying, I'm not paying for the poison you're pumping into my house, the county's now saying...
Now the county's coming along and saying, we're going to send Child Protective Services and seize your children, because under the law, if you're not paying for it, we'll shut it off. And if we shut it off, you don't have functional water service. And if you don't have functional water service, the law says that's child endangerment. So we'll come take your kids from you. If you stop paying for more poison, we'll come take your kids.
I wonder if something exists. You know, you can filter your water. If there's a way to filter out lead. You know, like if you've got a water softener, is there a water softener or a filter system, or if you put potassium or salt, whatever, that will filter out lead? I wonder. Yeah. And there's got to be some way to remove it.
The other reason I think that who is in power, the party, is relevant to this case, is the government at several places along this story denied it, denied it, denied it. Each step, like, well, this happened. Well, no, that didn't happen. Well, yes, because we have the documents. No, those documents aren't true. They attempted to lie about this entire thing while kids were being poisoned.
But not just kids, everybody.
Yes, but it has the greatest impact on children.
It does. It has the greatest impact on them. You know, when I used to work on a range regularly, like that was my full-time job sort of a thing.
Around lead.
Yeah, I used to get a lead test every year.
Oh, you did?
Every year, yeah. It was cheap, you know, 20, 25 bucks, whatever. I just wanted to know. And interesting enough, out there's got to be a lot in the water, because I worked around guns, which every bullet that flies out has lead in it. Yeah. And I was always in a good area. I never had a high lead level.
Yeah. I know that company now currently tests the maintenance guys that have to clean all the berms out during the summer, the closed
months. And that's good. They should.
They get tested. And they had to do environmental closures on their equipment. It's crazy.
Fun enough. Yeah. All right, guys. We'll be back next week.
Bye-bye.